because there's so many of them, and I am so excited. Let me go ahead and do all of these as we go. We have Adrian Barbeau, Tom Savini, Warner Shook, John Amplis, come on Martin, Dale Ferrucci, and Christine Romero. Give it up, Lexington. All right, does everybody have a seat down through there? I wanted to make sure everybody had a, are we one short? Nope, we're right here. Hey, somebody can come, John, you want to come down here and we'll move Kat back a little bit? Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely, we'll push it right here. Well, and yes, please have a seat. So, before we get started.
Oh, it's working. Well, what do you want to know?
Well, before we get started, I just wanted to show off. I've met most of you before I got this cool gig years ago. This is my original one sheet. Signed by George, signed by Stephen, signed by even Joe King. Let me tell you, when I say doing this panel is a little exciting for me, so I'm not going to geek out too much, all right? Who's got their questions ready? Nobody wants to hear from me? Yes, Jake.
What exactly?
Can't hear you.
Yell, Jake.
So what exactly was Fluffy?
Him.
Nobody knows.
I was thinking Tasmanian devil.
Did he have any legs?
Yeah, he had legs and feet.
Okay.
Yeah. It took like 6 people to operate Fluffy. My friend Marty Schiff had his hands in the feet, and he was under the stage making the feet move forward, And Daryl was inside, and all Daryl could do was move the head, because all the facial expressions were operated off camera with cables and things like that.
But no, I can move the arms.
Of course.
And my whole body. An interesting point though. We always say he. There is no indication in the script of Fluffy's gender. Nowhere.
So you were a transgender Tasmanian devil?
It's possible.
Who else? Yes.
What became of him?
What became of Fluffy? The original Fluffy, Greg Nicotero, refurbished last year. He's at my house. Yeah. Well, just his head. The body is, I don't know where the body is. It went all over the world in different pieces. That's it. Well, thank you.
Question. Who's got the next question over here? Sorry, we ran out of room down here at the end. Yes, sir, right over here. I'm going to go shut these doors so it's a little loud out here.
Can't hear you.
For each of you, and preface for the actors, you can't pick your segment. For each of you, which is your favorite segment and why?
Mine's Father's Day simply because I was in it. So that is my favorite.
Well, for me, it's the crate. And the one thing I would love to do over again is shoot her in the head. Because Daryl was my right-hand man, my assistant on Creepshow. Now, for her bullet hit in the head, I had to press an explosion that shot the blood out of her head against the tree, and press the trigger on an air cannon that would make the hole appear, would pop a button out of her head. But I said to Daryl before we did it, don't pump the blood until I tell you. And I forgot to tell him because I was concentrating on the timing of the button and the exit. Because it would have been great if you saw the hole appear and then blood gushed out, When she laid down, we made blood come out, but it would have been so great in that effect. And that's the difference today. Today when they use CGI blood, you could do take after take and no cleanup. Back then, that would have taken hours to redo.
It was a special appliance that Tom made, right? And there was a flat tubing.
Well, we would have
had
to find the button that came out of her head and clean the tree,
and
so
do more makeup.
Yeah.
Mine was Father's Day, because I was in it. And because it was a group of actors, it was like a small one-act play, and we rehearsed it like a play. And all the actors were so on the mark. And both Steve King and George were very generous about letting us improvise. In fact, a line that I have signed on 9 million posters is, "Are we still conserving energy?"
Oh, yeah.
And I made that up. So they were very generous. If they respected your talent, they let you run with it. So it was fun to do.
As cinema, I don't really have a favorite. I like all the episodes. I'm just with these guys. The Crate's my favorite because I'm so in it. You know? But I had the privilege of working with Tom, as he said, throughout the whole film, and we made all the effects. But then, you know, when it came time to build a monster, we were like, well, I'm here. We'll build it on me.
Exactly.
And so that's cool. I find a lot of people who come to my table tell me the Crate is their favorite episode. I hear that again and again, but then again, those are the people who are coming to me to have me sign something.
We had a Name the Creature contest.
Yeah.
And people just put names in the hat, and what won was Fluffy.
Because it's funny. Because we just had to, we were saying, well, what do we call it? Because we were building a thing, we had to call it something, right? The people who were building the first iPhone probably had a code name. You have to call your project something. There's, again, nothing in the script, no name.
Chris.
Oh, I have a couple favorites. Jordy Verrill, the one with Steve King. Good friends of ours, Cletus and Barbara Anderson, were the designers on that. They were teachers at CMU. And Cletus built that, all the green, which I just think looks very professional. I mean, it was really a great job. And I also like the E.G. Marshall episode. I think that just, you know, you can't get those images out of your mind. But they're all good. And when I look back on that film, it was such a good time. In my memories is everything went well. Which usually in a movie, it's, you know, you're wringing your hands, you know. But all my memories are good.
The house, the Stephen King house, was built on a hill that was just a bare hill before that. And it was screwing up pilots who were used to not seeing a house on it. And they drove by. Because he built it like almost overnight. And it looked like it had been there, you know, for 100 years.
All right, who's the next question?
My least favorite was the roaches. They couldn't have paid me enough to do what he did, and still couldn't. I mean, I've worked with snakes and tarantulas and rats and bees, but not roaches.
There were 28,000 of those cockroaches. Most of the roaches were...
They're all still alive.
most of the roaches were pistachio nut shells painted black. Because as soon as you dumped 14,000 roaches on the floor, they were gone. They just disappeared. So it was lucky that we got the shots we did with all those hideous
Wasn't
roaches.
there a roach wrangler?
Oh, yeah.
We sent 2 entomologists to Trinidad to collect the roaches. The roaches live in caves in bat shit. Okay? So they would dig a hole in the bat guano as far as they could, turn the lights off, wait 60 seconds, turn the lights back on. The hole would be filled with those big roaches, and they would stuff them in plastic bags. And they collected 18,000 of those and brought them, you know, back to the States. And they bred 10,000 more in the Roach Motel, which was a trailer with big drums. The biggest roaches were called Georges, named after George Romero. The middle ones were called Stevens, named after Steve King, and the smallest ones were Richards, named after the producer. So George could say, bring me 5,000 Richards, 10,000 Steves, and that's how they would bring the roaches to George.
And didn't they escape? Wasn't there some story about...
Thousands of them escaped.
And then populated Pittsburgh?
Well, we shot in a high school gym that had a kind of a balcony, and that's where all the props and furniture was stored. And when the movie was over, we gave all of that to the Salvation Army, who got complaints all over Pittsburgh because of the huge roaches that were living in them. So yeah, there's a new breed of roaches in Pittsburgh because of Creepshow.
No, I was gonna say that was that was one I was in. That was the segment that I was in, and I think we asked E.G. Marshall, played Mr. Pratt, doesn't it bother you to have these roaches on you? And he said, I grew up in Hell's Kitchen, it doesn't bother me at all. Because he had them all his life.
All the actors were so terrific to work with. Adrienne especially, and Fritz Weaver, Hal Holbrook, and E.G. Marshall, they were so kind and supportive. Because, we were a little independent film company, and they were, I think, it was refreshing to come to Pittsburgh and have a little team. Right, Adrienne?
It was one of the greatest enjoyments of my life. I just, I fell in love with you and George and Pittsburgh and Hal and Fritz and everybody involved. It was just it was a fantastic experience. And, when I was first sent the script and I read it, and I didn't know George from Adam. I'm not a horror, I don't have horror in my background. I can't do this. This is gross. This is, oh, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And I was married to John Carpenter at the time, and he said, are you kidding? You're going to turn down an opportunity to work with George Romero, the master of horror? I'd never seen Night of the Living Dead or anything. And I called Tom Atkins, who was already cast as the father in the interstitials, and was a very close friend. And I said, Tommy, you're gonna do this movie? It's really, ugh. And he said, oh, Adie, you don't get it. It's a comic book. It's gonna be very stylized. It's gonna be very funny. You've gotta do it. So I did. And it's one of the things I'm proudest of and happiest of.
And the way Creepshow came about is I was the secretary in the office. I kind of did everything. And the phone rang one day, and a voice said, may I speak to George Romero? I said, who's calling, please? They said, it was Stephen King. I said, pardon me? Steve King? He said, yes. So anyway, George took the call, and I'm in there going, and he invited George to come up to Maine. He said, I'd love to meet you. I think we could do something together. So we got in the car, we drove up to Maine, we'd have lunch with them, and over lunch, they decide they each like the DC comic book, is it DC or whatever? EC, whatever. And Steve says, give me a month, I'll find a script for you, or I'll write it something. And a month later, Creepshow came. And I didn't realize at the time how unusual that was, but it was terrific.
Anybody else have questions? Yeah.
Her story just kind of led to my question. What was it like working with Stephen King, and does anyone have any good Stephen King stories?
Stephen King is just a big kid that happens to be a genius. Okay? He was just fun, always fun. He was missing from the set one day. I had to go to a war surplus store, and I'm driving to the store, and I see him in the middle of the highway, walking on the median strip with 3 lanes of cars on either side of him, reading a book and drinking a Perrier, okay? So it was no surprise to me when I heard he got hit by a van. It was just, so I took him with me to the store, and we bought stuff, and he put his credit card down, and the girl said, oh, I bet you're the Stephen King. And I'm going, and he's not saying anything, okay, so anyway. Modest guy.
He had a really nifty new little sports car, remember that?
Oh, sure.
I don't remember what kind, but he took us out on a little ride in the curvy roads around Monroeville. He was still getting used to it.
No, he was
What kind of one?
And his son, Joe Hill, he lived with us. He lived in the makeup effects room. He just always was with us. And, he gets slapped in the face. I had to put the slap mark on his face, And he's hired me 4 or 5 times now that he's Joe Hill. He put me in Nosferatu, Lock and Key. Yeah, very loyal. The Black Phone, which was his. Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Stephen King? Yeah? No? Any other?
She has a
thoughts to share?
question.
I was just gonna ask, at the time that you all were filming this, did you think it would be as beloved as it is today?
Oh, wow. 40-something years later.
No.
Could have never have imagined.
We hoped it would.
Did
Well, I
you
was
even
telling
think about,
somebody-
you didn't think about things like that?
No, the future, we were busy making it. I mean, who could even think about what was gonna happen later? We were real busy,
We were living in the moment.
Yeah, very much so. And
I
again,
hope to
like
get
Tom
through
said,
it.
pre-CGI, we were elbow deep in the stuff, I mean, physically, it was very involved.
Well, there were only 4 stories. We actually sat around and voted on the 5th story, remember? Should we do the 5th story?
Is that funny?
The cockroach.
But when
Vinci Marshall.
we did think it was really good, and we were really happy with the footage, and Warner Brothers released it, and it was #2 in the country.
Wow.
And I can remember I had to cut out, Variety would put the top 10 or 20 films, and it was #2. We were so excited. And then Warner Brothers, the week after it opened, pulled all advertising.
Why?
And that's why it just totally died. But it was like, it could have really been a huge hit, I think. But I think they were doing it too, because they didn't finance it. So they were taking a loss.
But talk about endurance. I mean, of all movies made in 1981, 82, like how many still have, we see new posters and masks and figures and items and releases, like every time you come to a convention, there are new things that come out that are Creepshow specific. That
And a
people bring
series.
to us.
And a series.
Yeah, that too, of course.
Well, when the movie was finished, George called me aside into his office. He said, Tom, I've got bad news for you. The editor of the crate sequence, famous editor Paul Hirsch, he did Star Wars, I think, He said that he didn't show Fluffy a lot in this episode. And I thought that was great. That was great because as soon as you see the monster, I can deal with that, you don't care anymore. That's why Alien was so great. You never saw the creature until the last shot when they blow him away from the spaceship. So I thought it was great that you weren't going to see Fluffy alive.
We didn't know that while making Fluffy, of course.
No, of course.
Of course, there was every hour after hour of attention to every little detail. But that was the editing decision to keep it a mysterious thing, right? And it worked.
Also, after the crate gets thrown into the water, her remains float to the surface.
What?
Yeah, her remains. We did a head cast of her, and I built kind of a head and this much of your chest, all bitten and chewed, and that rose to the surface. And it didn't wind up in the movie.
Gosh, that's
Yes. Yes.
Well, but that means that she could come back.
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah. If you could survive Fluffy, right? But go to my Instagram. Her remains are one of the pictures in the Instagram.
If anyone could have survived Fluffy, it was her.
Go ahead.
So the movie is very tongue in cheek. The comic adaptation is actually kind of serious. Was that a Stephen King call, or was that?
I don't know. I don't know that. Anybody?
I missed what you said.
He said the movie was tongue in cheek, but the comic was pretty serious. The Creepshow comic.
Oh.
The movie adaptation.
The movie adaptation
Yeah.
of the
comic.
the comic
Oh.
of the
But
movie,
it's comic.
not the one that preceded the movie.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking.
It was
came
always
out
meant to
with
be
the
tongue in
movie.
cheek, my memory of it. The guy who did the illustration. Who's
Bernie writes.
Bernie writes it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, the comic is a comic, but the movie had to do things to seem like a comic.
The flashing
Just the
background.
Yeah.
Those lights, the red and big lights, that was such a cheap thing to do, and it worked. It worked so well,
Now, when Leslie Nielsen was laughing his ass off in front of those backgrounds, he had a fart machine. We would be on the set, and he wouldn't tell anybody. You'd hear this coming from, oh, that Hollywood actor over there. You know? And then in restaurants he would do it, and people in the table next to George and Chris, when Stephen King walked by and said, "You're the most disgusting person you've ever heard." When he had it on a Letterman show, I since bought one. It's just great to But I'm sure he was doing that and making himself laugh so hard in front of that background, you know.
He also was a really nice man. Yeah, I forgot to mention, but I can't tell you how fun it was to have such a kind, happy cast, because it's not always like that, you know. It can be really tense.
Okay, next question, yes, sir.
There's somebody back there.
So someone, as people involved in the industry these days, do you miss the time before CGI?
Are you talking?
Just anyone.
Anyone? No, I like CGI if it's done well, but it hardly ever is, you know. It's kind of an economic decision to use CGI, like I was talking about killing her again, you know. When the blood is CGI, you can do take after take. You know, if we had to tear Joe Pilato in half again, that's 6 hours of delay. Where CGI, you just do it again, and it's just an economic. You get more shots sometimes using CGI, but they haven't mastered certain things. Cars getting, you know, falling off cliffs, people. But even on The Walking Dead, there was a scene where the cast was getting knocked on the head and their throats were being cut, and blood was gushing into this trough. Okay, they didn't put any appliance on those people. The CGI guys just erased the tubing afterwards. So, you know, it's an economic decision sometimes.
But as far as like your personal enjoyment of the work, did you prefer it before CGI when it was more hands-on?
Well, when you see the werewolf transformation, an American Werewolf in London, it's happening right in front of you.
Yes.
You know, when you see my stuff in the movie, it's happening right in front of you. It takes you got to change your mindset when you're watching CGI. When I saw Jurassic Park, I didn't see any dinosaurs. I pictured people sitting at a computer, and that pissed me off. So the next time I saw it, I had to change my mindset. No matter what I see, foreground, background, it's really there. And the movie was terrific, but I had to make that effort. It's a collective dislike of CGI, because people don't want to make that effort, you know, sometimes.
But he's asking you, as an artist, would you rather be working with CGI or without,
Well,
if
you know
there were
what?
no financial considerations?
Yeah, well, you know, there were times when I wish I had CGI to erase an edge or something, or, you know, but I prefer, and it seems the public does, practical effects. J.J. Abrams, when he did his Star Wars movie, it was mostly practical effects. When the new Evil Dead movie came out, they were bragging that there's no CGI in this movie, you know, it was all practical. And there's a different feeling when you watch the practical stuff, you know.
Yes, sir, right there.
So, this is for Adrian. Going back to your comment about living through the crate, then do we have the possibility of looking forward to a 40 years later family sitcom with you and Fluffy as grandparents?
You're living off the French Riviera.
I guess we'd have to go back to Stephen for that. But George isn't here, so no.
You know what it would be like? It would be like young Frankenstein when the Frankenstein monster is in bed reading a newspaper with Madeline Kahn. You know, they settle down. You know.
The same thing happened for me with Maggie in Escape from New York. You know, originally there was no shot of Maggie dead on the ground. And J.J. Abrams, as a teenager, saw an early screening to which John asked, you know, what's everybody thinking? And J.J. said, well, what happened to Maggie? So we went back into my garage and put the costume on and put the blood on and put me down on the ground and took that last shot. I didn't get to do Escape from L.A., you know, because Maggie was dead. Of course, From what I hear, I probably didn't miss anything.
No.
I never saw
No.
it.
No.
All right, next question. Who has our next question? Yes.
Front row here.
It's more of a request, and I understand if you don't want to, but one of my favorite lines is when you said, "Oh, just call me Billy." Everyone says I just when I said who was going to be here, that's how everyone recognizes you.
And for $100, she'll do it.
Oh wait, she can't. There's an actor strike.
Actually, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you a different story
That's wonderful.
about Billy. In 2012, I think it was, I did 9 months on General Hospital. And right toward the end of my run, they wrote a scene for me where I was up against these two big Italian Goombas, you know, they were really giving me trouble. And on CBS TV in the afternoon, my character got to say, "Get out of my way, you guys, or I swear to God you'll be wearing your balls for earrings." Oh, just call me Billy. CBS, it went right over their heads, I guess.
Well, thanks for asking.
Good one.
All right, who has our next question?
Way back there.
Yeah.
This is for Tom. What were your feelings on playing Sex Machine in Dusk Till Dawn?
Every guy would love to play a character called Sex Machine in a vampire movie, okay? No, I was overjoyed, of course. I would go to parties and they would be like the Suits, the money guys. "Oh, who are you? What are you playing?" "Sex Machine." They couldn't believe it was a character. But you know what? I think he got it from a James Brown song. Didn't James Brown have a song? I think that's where Quentin got it, because Quentin wrote that, you know.
You look very like at home with the whole thing.
I looked very at home. Well, on the first take, the gun came up and one of the cartridges fell off. that was an hour-long laugh.
All right, next question. Who has our next question? Are we getting low on questions? Oh my goodness.
Front row. Oh, there
Okay,
you
now
go.
we got two. I got you right over here, and then I'll come right back over to you. Yes, yes,
I
ma'am.
was just gonna ask what the inspiration for Fluffy was?
No inspiration, really. I hired artist friends of mine to draw what they thought Fluffy should look like. And then I did some sketches. And we gave them all to George Romero and Stephen King. And they picked one of mine, and that's why he looks the way he did. Again, I was thinking Tasmanian Devil. He had to have a big mouth because he gobbles her up in a couple of bites, you know. So, you know, it just came out of my warped imagination.
Yes.
So, I appreciate you all very much, but my question is for the ladies on the panel. How is your feeling for being in this genre of horror? Working in this genre? I just want to know your feelings on it.
You know, it's not so much the genre as it is the specific approach to the genre. I get offered many, many scripts where I'll read the first 5 pages and say, "No, thank you, this isn't for me," because you don't know who the characters are, you don't care when they get sliced up, the way they get sliced up is, you know. So, but as an actor in the genre, I think we would all agree, it's great fun. I mean, you get to, you know, it's such a wealth, or a, what do I want to say, a plethora of different emotions that you get to play, and so, but the genre's changed.
I think, you're right. Yeah, I have no more to say. You're right.
The genre's changed. It's, you know, it's
funny, I look back on that. For me, when I was a young actress, I was just so thrilled to get to do something. I never thought like, oh, should I do a horror movie or whatever. But I did Martin, and it was my first film. And I was so excited and all that stuff. And then Thanks. Anyway, I was in Boston where we were promoting it, and I got invited to be on a radio show. And I was just so excited and so proud of the work and, so happy with George. And the first thing the guy says to me is, what do your parents think of you appearing in a horrible thing like this? And I could hardly talk. I didn't know what to, and they blindsided me and the guy just was over and over me about how horrible, bloody, terrible movie you're in and how could you be involved with someone like this? It was, I can't even remember what I said, probably nothing. I was so stunned. But there was
a stigma.
A big stigma.
I would look at Day of the Dead with Laurie Cardill in the lead role, who plays a very strong, dedicated, smart woman who really is in charge. And so I agree, the genre is changing, and I think George made a point of helping that change come about, especially in not just the casting, but the writing of Sarah in Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to that, any of you? Okay. All right. What did you say, by the way, Adrian?
Yes.
When the convent came across your desk and when you read that? I'm just curious. You said, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. Oh, I've got to do this.
I thought,
Has anyone seen The Convent? We've got one.
See The Convent.
Go find it, directed by
See
Mike
The
Mendez. It's 80 minutes, shot on the same Leprechaun sets that they use for something else. I don't know if you knew that or not. They used the sets from the Leprechaun movie beforehand for The Convent.
Oh.
He had so little money. But
I
go ahead.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
What I thought was, oh my God, I get to play Snake Plissken. I'm blowing away nuns with an M16.
And that's all you need to know about The Convent. Go search it out.
There's a guy back there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, can anybody here say, I want my cake the same way that it said in the movie?
Oh, I wish I could. It was John Lormer that, did the voice. And unfortunately, he passed away shortly after the film was shot, actually. And I would try. I always just go down. I don't know if it's correct or not, but, I want my cake.
Now, do you
That's
know
the best I can do.
In every episode, do you know there's an ashtray in every episode, the same ashtray? It's on Warner's table, by the way. I wanted to go see it, it's on his table.
It's also on the TV show a lot.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're right. Greg made a point of putting that in as much as he could.
All right, we got time for just a couple more questions. Who's got our last couple? Yes, ma'am.
Do you think the new Creepshow series is a good reflection and continuation from the movie that you all did?
Some of the episodes are, yeah. Yeah, some of them.
Because you directed one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did the last episode of the first season. The last episode of the first season. Anybody see that one? No, nobody saw it.
It was written by Joe Hill, right?
Pardon me?
It was written by Joe Hill?
Yeah. We seem to have a history, me and Joe, with projects.
You started slapping him and now you're directing him.
Stephen King was worried. He thought Joe was really going to get slapped. He said, no, these are actors. Okay.
But every birthday, somebody somewhere, I get a text, an email, or saying, I hope you got your cake. And speaking of which, today is Christine Romero's birthday.
It all went by quickly.
This guy has a question.
All right,
So apparently, there's a story of putting Ted Danson's makeup in front of his daughter, and you were afraid that you were going to scare him or something, and she just said, "Hi, Daddy."
I don't remember that at all. No.
I was Ted's stand-in. I don't remember that at all.
Oh, okay. I guess I read it wrong then.
Ted, I will say that Ted never acknowledges that he was in Creepshow.
He doesn't. No.
Do people ask him if he denies it?
His loss.
If you look at any articles about Creepshow, you'll never see one with Ted. I assume he was embarrassed.
I would like to say one more thing about your question about the genre.
Yes.
Now, today's market, the genre, the horror genre is, I mean, everybody wants to be in a horror film. That's the fastest way for an actor to, you know, rise to the top.
If I see one more clown killing people. Some of my best friends were clowns in Ringling Brothers Circus. I turned down everything. There was a clown doing
And with that, they're going to be here all weekend. Will you please give it up for our friends from Creepshow? This has been amazing. Thank you, Scarefest.